All right, let's
Okay,
do it.
well, I'm Jane Early with the Friends of the Harry Hartley Conservation Area, and I am here to meet Ian Fisher. If you speak up.
I'll speak up.
Speak up. You definitely speak up.
Don't worry.
Okay.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello to the video as well. So my name is Liam Fisher. I own and founded a little company here in Maine, called Maine Garum Co. Has anyone here heard the word garum before?
Yes, we went to Italy. We
Okay.
heard all about it.
Cool.
Ancient Romans, that's what they used.
Absolutely.
As season.
Yes. And so it's a word that a lot of people haven't heard, but lots of people who've been to Italy have. And it refers to a fermented fish sauce that was popular throughout the Mediterranean in ancient times. And it spread as far as the Roman Empire did. Because this is a sauce that they produced on an industrial scale. Like the way we make Coca-Cola today, they made fish sauce, garum, like that. And a lot of people are familiar with fish sauce in the Asian context. It exists in Thai food, Vietnamese food. You know, pretty much every Asian country has their own tradition around fish sauce. But that tradition actually existed in European countries, Northern African countries as well. It's an independently discovered fermentation technique by these different cultures on opposite sides of the world. And it's really, they were just both groups of people who had access to salt and caught fish that were really tiny. And they were just like all of us. And they got little tiny fish and said, what am I supposed to fillet that? You know how much work it would be to fillet that fish and then like eat the fillets and get nothing out of it. And so they were probably like, okay, I don't want to deal with these tiny fish that we caught. Just throw them in that bucket over there and throw a bunch of salt on them so then they don't go bad because they figured out that salting fish preserves it. And they were like, well, we'll get back to it later. And a year goes by and somebody popped open that thing and they said, oh my God, this is delicious. You know, that's what fish sauce is. It's fish, salt combined together and allowed to naturally ferment.
All the guts and bones and everything,
Absolutely.
and the fins
And
and the eyeballs.
And in fact, the guts are the most important ingredient. And so that's going to bring me over to kind of my origin story for getting into fish sauce. So I went to school for mechanical engineering. And by my junior year, sophomore year, I knew I wanted absolutely nothing to do with a traditional engineering path. It seemed like I would have to go ahead and work for a defense contractor if they didn't want to in an office that didn't seem like a culture I wanted to be a part of.
We're just gonna adjust the lights for a minute.
Sure thing.
No.
It's those lights. How's that? There you go.
That's
Is that
good.
okay?
That's
Yeah,
good.
it's okay.
Yeah.
Good, good.
Like I said, I didn't want to go down the traditional engineering career path, but I always really loved food. I came from a family that loved food. My parents were always cooking dinner, and you know everything else we eat. And so it kind of was like I want to explore how can I make engineering this like technical problem solving skill set that I've paid a bunch of money for and have developed. How can I apply this to food? And that wasn't really clear to me how I was going to do that, but I figured a great place to start was just start cooking in restaurants. So I did. And I started cooking in a little cafe and then moved up to a nicer place. And I ended up working at what was a really nice restaurant in Mass where I was living. And while there, I got to learn so much. And I learned how to make hot sauce and kimchi and a whole variety of pickles. We actually had a dish on the menu always called sukamono, which is the Japanese word for pickle. It's really kind of broad, preserve of all type of vegetable. And we would have this refrigerated drawer that would have anywhere from like 16 to 24 different types of pickles in it at any time, depending on the time of the year. You know, maybe it's fall, there's all the summer produce is in there, so you got so many different things.
And in the winter, there's turnips.
Well, there's turnips, but then there's also the things from the summer. You know, we have some salted strawberries or something like that that's still in there that because we had a huge shelf in our walk-in fridge that was like, that's the pickle shelf. And so when you ran out of one thing, you just go, all right, what do I want off the pickle shelf to add on to it? But I just got really into this whole world of preserving and, you know, all the types of cooking that aren't like sauteing and frying. And that's just what fascinated me. And I also fell in love with oysters while I was there. And so I got a really awesome opportunity. Our whole kitchen was invited to the James Beard House in New York City to come cook this dinner. It was a cool event to be a part of. And my chef said, okay, great, it's a real honor. And they took the whole kitchen up to Maine. It was my first time coming up to Maine. I grew up in Rhode Island. And we got to see the eel farm, and we also got to see a couple of oyster farms as well. And I happened to meet somebody that was doing an oyster project at the Darling Marine Center, which is a University of Maine-owned aquaculture research, marine science research facility in Walpole. And I got to meet this guy who's trying to grow oysters in recirculating and I saw this and I was said, perfect. This is engineering and oysters and food and novel food production. And so he's telling us about his project, and I raise my hand, and I'm right there with my whole kitchen, and I say, hey, would you be interested in hiring a mechanical engineer? And he was like, yes, I absolutely would. And so 6 months later, I ended up moving up to Maine to work on that project and work at the Darling Marine Center. And so it was a total change, you know, going from mechanical engineering to cooking to that. But one of the tasks that we were trying to figure out in our research was, how do you feed oysters without the incredible bounty that the ocean provides? Like, how could you possibly, and do it economically as well? Because everybody else gets to feed for free. And really what starts to be clearly the only thing that's going to make sense to do it is by finding somebody else's byproduct. Find the waste of some other business and ferment it into something that's alive, and oysters, that kind of became the trick. And so doing that work really got me fascinated with waste utilization and upcycling. And so, you know, that company didn't end up panning out. And, you know, I did a few other things in the meantime, but I was just looking for a business opportunity where I could use somebody's waste and make something good with it. And so I looked at a lot of different options, but the real, you know, aha moment, light bulb inspiration came when a roommate of mine had just been out smelting, and he came home with these beautiful, fresh smelts, guts intact, shining, wonderful. He was like, just like these ancient people who got these tiny fish that they didn't want to bother flaying. He said, yeah, I don't really want to deal with these. Like, would you like them? And as somebody who had spent all this time cooking and got really into fermentation, I said, yes, I absolutely want those. And I saw it as, here's an opportunity to make fish sauce. And so I did. I made a smelt fish sauce at home. I used like my old college refrigerator as like an incubator for it. And it ended up coming out pretty nice. And it wasn't so hard. But what really clicked in my head was that the most important ingredient that was hard for me to procure otherwise to make fish sauce is the guts, all the digestive system of the fish. And what always gets thrown away when you process fish, the guts. And so here I am in Maine, and I'm thinking, all this seafood around, and I want to start this waste utilization business, and I have this background in cooking and this knowledge about it. This is perfect. So I knew some of the folks at American Unagi. I know that they had recently started filleting their eels and selling the fillets, and I'm thinking to myself, here's a small business trying to just, you know, get that part of the business started. What's happening with the head and the guts and the spines, tails, and all those bits that get cut away. And so I reach out to them, and they say, Yeah, sure, you can have all that, but would you also like to come work for us because they really help flying fish? So I got the opportunity to work for American Algae the past couple of years and learn a huge amount about running a food business and about food production and safety regulations. And in the meantime, in my own time, I was developing the recipe to make a dill fish sauce entirely out of the byproducts from that processing operation. And so what that's yielded now is a relationship where, as they process, I have a barrel in that room, collect all the raw material. So there's truly no organic waste coming off of the line, unless a fillet something gets soap on it, where it's no longer food. Sure, that's gotta go in the trash. But otherwise, at the end of the day, there's just some gloves, some paper towels, their trash bin. And everything else is able to get saved, salted, fermented, filter it, and then get fish sauce at the end of it.
That must be really valuable.
Tremendously. Yeah, no, they've
eliminated their waste.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it would fill up it, especially as they scale more and more, they literally need to buy another dumpster, just to deal with the amount that's coming off. And I'll tell you all the people who work in the process room, they absolutely love it. Because if I don't take that raw material, they're dealing with a couple 100 pounds every week of this stuff.
Yeah.
And so they have to take these bags, throw them over their shoulder like Santa Claus, and carry it out to the dumpster, put it on, it's a huge amount of work. And there's also, just the sheer number of trash bags that American Algae has started saving since then. Yeah, they're very appreciative of it. Yeah, but that's how I got to Maine Garum Company. I finally actually launched my fish sauce in July of last year. I sold my first case, and I'll show you a bottle because I brought a whole bunch. But this is what you end up getting at the end. So this is just a little 6-ounce retail bottle, but
it looks like maple syrup.
Yeah, maple syrup, bourbon, whiskey, like all that. But yeah, this was a whole pile of fish heads and guts and all that. And what transforms it into this is the magic of fermentation. And so I mentioned before, most important ingredient in fish sauce is that guts. And so what's going on is, all that material goes into, I recently got big 50-gallon drums. So there's a whole bunch of gallon drums of guts fermented. I don't do any blending, grinding. It's actually the enzymes that are in the fish's gut that do all the work. They are take a moment and think about it. When you guys anything, a bean, what a piece of meat, a salad, it comes into your body and you start mashing it up with your mouth, and you have enzymes in your spit that start breaking down all the starches and the sugars, and then it gets into your digestive system of all these enzymes. It's like your cells, they can't eat lettuce, they can't eat beans, that can't get over a cell membrane. You have this whole digestive system in order to take those materials and truly liquefy them so that they can move through your bloodstream and get access to your cells. And you have that in your gut. Eels have that in their gut. Everything has the ability to do it. And even more, to help you understand what's going on, like everything has the ability to digest itself. It is how we grow and change. You imagine a person that loses a bunch of weight. It's not, they didn't lop off their gut. Their body digested that gut into nothingness. They actually breathed out the CO2, where it goes. And, it takes those enzymes to make those changes in organic living things. And we have that ability, and fish have that ability. And that's what's happening in fish sauce, that I'm allowing the enzymes that are naturally present to liquefy it. And so one of the really amazing things that you get at the bottom of a barrel of fish sauce is perfectly clean fish bone. There is not the tiniest little scrap of meat on them. They're white, shining, like when you see a skull up on a wall or something as like a decoration that's been in the desert for 50 years, and it's like just that's what they look like after just a couple of weeks. Truly, it goes from a solid mass that I couldn't even like put a spoon into if I wanted to, because it's fish, just a bunch of solid stuff. And a week later, it's a full liquid thing that I could stir. And that's all driven by the enzyme. And not only is it taking solids and burning the liquid, the really important magic, what does it taste like? Why would anyone even, why do you care if it's liquefied? It's because it's so delicious. And so, we need to eat protein to survive. But, like I was talking about earlier, it's not like proteins are, in terms of cells, they're kind of big molecules. They're hard to deal with. They need to get broken down to fundamental components, amino acids, peptides, other tiny little shreds of things that you get when you break down protein. And we have evolved to love the way that tastes because it triggers a little thing in our mind that says, oh, this is delicious. And that thing is umami. I heard earlier, a friend of mine sent me a little message today when I woke up this morning to listen to Belfast radio, and they were talking about this talk, and the person I guess read it as umami, which we both thought was which is fine. It's a Japanese word, totally reasonable pronunciation.
So what does it mean?
Umami.
What does it mean?
Oh, I'm going to tell you.
Okay.
So umami is a Japanese word. It was coined in the 1960s by a scientist who identified the molecules responsible. And primarily, although there's a family of them, it's glutamic acid, which is a fundamental amino acid. We all need to survive in our bodies. It's in any type of protein. But there's the whole variety of amino acids that have peptides have trigger this as well in our taste buds, and they also interact in interesting ways that can be synergistic and actually enhance the whole process. And it's your experience of savory. Mm-hmm. And some people find it really elusive, but it's the best way to describe it is to think of foods that are rich in umami. So oysters, really rich in umami. Tomatoes, really rich in umami. That's one of the reasons why pizza is so addictively delicious and little kids love it, is because you have, this nice caramelized piece of bread that's been toasted in the oven, which is super tasty. And then you have tomatoes, which are really rich in umami. And then you have cheese, which is a different type of broken down protein, which now has all these amino acids, which have umami flavors in them. And so it's just umami stacked on umami, and your brain just goes nuts when you eat it and you want more. And another has everybody here had a Dorito? Oh, yes. Has everybody here had a tortilla chip before? Difference between a tortilla chip and a Dorito. Dorito is covered in umami. Mm-hmm. You have a bunch of scientists who spent decades trying to make a tortilla chip so addictive, you can't stop eating by covering it in a bunch of these, they're not sourcing it naturally the way fish sauce is. But whether it's your yeast extract, your tomato extract, like all these things, they have glutamic acid in it, they have insinate, they have all these peptides and they figured out all these clever ways to get them together and make them stick on a potato chip and get them to interact in a way that you taste a Dorito and you go, well, I really want another Dorito. and that's what umami is. And it's not something that is inherent to Japanese cuisine or Asian cuisine in general. It's actually something that is fundamental in our evolution as a flavor that we appreciate, just like sweetness, just like bitter, just like sour. Like there are ways that we understand the natural world and digest it and make decisions about it and decide what we want to ingest and what's nutritious. And so, soy sauce, super high in umami. Prosciutto, excellent source of umami. It's a protein that's been aged long enough that there's opportunity for that protein to break down, for amino acids to develop, and then it hits your tongue, your cells go nuts, freak out, and it's like your brain. And so that's what fish sauce is all about. It is a liquid form of that umami that you can just instantly add to things. Throw it on noodles. It's like you coated noodles in this like protein nutrition that makes your brain go crazy. And so that's what's happening in fish sauce, and that's what fish sauce is all about. And what I think is really important, and it was the title that I gave you for this talk, is reviving the forgotten tradition of
Yeah.
umami in Western cuisine. Because, as Americans, we have access to, because of the globalized food system, so many umami sources from all over the world, whether it's your soy sauce, miso is a fantastic example, that are, they're really delicious, but there's not so much of an American umami. And I'm going to get into a really fun story that I really like and ties it together a little bit.
Okay, before you do that,
Yeah, please.
so what makes it not be raw
Mm,
as opposed to
the salt,
the salt?
crazy amount of salt, so much salt. And so,
And where do you source that?
So I get all my salt pound bags Rockland Food Service right now, but I'm evaluating 2 different sea salts right now. I have 2 different ferments actively going. One that's like a harvested sea salt out of Utah, and then a Mediterranean sea salt. I'd love to work with a Maine sea salt company, but the volumes, like I'm projecting needing like in the range of 4,000 pounds of salt at least every 6 months.
And is there a Maine salt?
Oh yeah, there's
Okay.
a bunch of Maine salt producers, and they're great, and I highly suggest
Okay,
if you needed to sprinkle, go for it. But
Right.
I need like
Right.
60 pounds a week minimum, and I ideally if I can for them quite a bit more.
and the bones don't break down.
No, the bones don't break down.
Okay,
No, they're totally solid, and the bones don't break down.
and in your fish sauce right now, you're only using eel, or
Yes,
you?
correct.
Okay,
Yes, I have aspirations to do some more things. And primarily the next one I'm planning on launching green crabs, which is the
Right.
awful invasive species.
Ooh, good
I
idea.
have 3 barrels of crabs fermenting as we speak, so I'm hoping that they're an invasive crab, and very, very destructive to our estuaries. They lots of clams, destroy eelgrass, and as water's warm, they're getting much worse.
Our whole mud
that's-
flat is still, we used to be able to eat off of it, and in
Yeah.
10 minutes, there's none.
Yeah.
No mussels left.
No, they're very destructive.
so you just put them in whole too, or do you shell them?
You gotta crack the shell.
You
so
gotta
the
crack
salt
it.
has access, and the enzymes can swim around and
Mm-hmm.
do their magic. But just like the eel bones, the shells are left over, and so without having to do any work to pick all the meat out, I can after a week or 2 just pick up a crab leg and you can put it up to the light and you can see right through it.
Right.
Doesn't
Nothing
it have more potassium? Aren't you adding more elements because of the crab shell?
I haven't done any testing on that.
Yeah.
I don't know of any knowledge about that.
Huh.
I have some green crab fish sauce that you can taste. I'll have some stuff
Yeah.
that you can taste, but I don't have any knowledge about what
Yeah.
elementally is different that's getting added to it, the shell versus the bones. But I will say there's quite a bit of additional flavor that comes from the crab shells. That's really interesting. I don't know how it relates to.
Oh, I
the
was just
chemical
gonna ask, if they
analysis,
taste the same, they don't taste the same.
every animal that you might choose to make fish sauce out of, in the ancient Romans and I mean people all over the world, they're using a whole variety of fish to there's a very popular fish sauce from Japan that's made with squid. Most of the stuff that gets imported in the United States and is made in Southeast Asia is made with anchovies. But there's evidence of a whole family of fish getting used very regularly throughout the ancient world.
Did you, the alewives?
Yeah.
Right, so there used to be a tradition that the alewives, like the poor people in town, the poor women, the widows in town would get a barrel of alewives.
Yeah.
Have you used alewives?
I haven't, but I'm interested to. Yeah, I'm really interested to. Although my focus for sure is where is there a problem and how can I use garum as a tool to solve it?
That's
Which
great.
doesn't mean that there might not be other opportunities. Maybe I make a small batch of alewife fish sauce because wouldn't that be cool and culturally significant for the area? But definitely the focus is where can I find problems?
And there's fish people in Port Clyde who.
I don't know if they're actually still open anymore. There was Port Clyde's Fresh Catch that I know was doing processing. I'm actually not sure if they're still active.
Okay, I don't know either. Yeah.
Well, bycatch, problem.
Yeah.
Commercial.
Absolutely.
So I guess the issue, how much, how much would you use of that and where would you?
Yeah, and
lot of-
there's definitely some challenges that come up around properly labeling species
Oh,
as well
absolutely.
when you get into that.
Sure.
And I don't even know all the what I would have to. I just haven't come.
Yeah.
But it's something I think about for sure because it's interesting.
Well, you could you have a mixed sauce?
I think I would be able to. I don't know if I could just say "It's fish, get over it." I think I'd need to put maybe a little bit like
Haddock cod.
some some very variable amount of this dozen fish, let's say, whatever it is. Maybe I could pull something like that.
Okay, but we're getting ahead of ourselves.
So
Okay.
the pogies out here, they sell to the lobstermen, and they're selling those a whole barrel for $140. It's
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
Mm.
It's cheap.
Yeah, totally. No, and it's all that stuff would totally make fish sauce.
But it's not
So-
byproduct yet.
No, it's not.
I'm ready to move on and to find out what your market is. and where you're
Sure.
going.
Well, I want to hear your story first.
I'll tell the story and then I'll get.
Yeah.
So, you might one of the things that as listening to the story, a question that might come up is, okay, so if it was so popular during Roman times, like what happened? Where'd it go? And it's actually a little bit of a mystery. No one has a firm answer on what happened, but Rome fell. It didn't exist anymore. And so with that, it's a big challenge for what ends up being a whole regional production and supply chain that ends up falling apart. And so people have this relationship with umami, right? But then they lose access to this commercially produced fish sauce. And so people started looking for alternative sources. And one of the things that ends up happening is through the trade with areas of China, fish sauce starts coming in to Europe. And there's a word in a certain area of China, and it's very similar to ketchup. And so we start getting this thing that they end up calling ketchup. The word garum goes away with the Roman Empire, Latin word goodbye. And so we start having this fish-based ketchup that's coming to Europe. And then that just kind of seems to lose popularity. It doesn't seem to exist anymore at some point. And so people start looking for okay, well, what else can I make umami sauces out of? So you may have seen they exist out there. There's recreations of it today, but people start making it with mushroom, another really umami rich thing. And so there's all these mushroom ketchup that exist for a little bit. And then we start showing up to the new world and people discover tomatoes, another source of umami, and they start making tomato ketchup. But it's not the tomato ketchup that we know today. It's this watery, thinner, savory, salty ketchup rather than a sweet pickle. And that's popular for a very long time. And then, it's like mid 1800s, late 1800s, this big food safety scare, a very legitimate one. People are putting all types of crazy preservatives that are causing all kinds of health problems in people in their tomato ketchups and a variety of things. And Mr. Heinz comes up with a clever idea of, okay, I want this stuff to be shelf stable. How can I make it shelf stable without any of these nasty chemicals? I'm going to load it with so much sugar that nothing can grow and it's going to be like honey. And that's how we get our modern, thick, sweet ketchup. It's this funny, extrapolation that totally loses the purpose, source, and reason of existing. And because of that, we all kind of lose this relationship with umami at all. And I think it's a real shame. And I think it's something that American food lacks. And it's one of the things that we all appreciate about Chinese food and pizza and all these things. But it isn't something that we have our own tradition around. And so, one of my goals with Maine Garum Co is that America should have its own umami sauces. And, I see the word garum as this word that's forgotten from a long time ago that has some cultural connection to a lot of the people here. And it's also, not me as a white guy trying to sell some product as well, which I feel a lot better about. But, I think that what I'm trying to do with fish sauce is reintroduce it to people and add something that was a part of our cuisine that was lost and deserves to be a part of it because it makes things a lot more delicious. And to your question of who the hell buying this stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. So right now I sell both the retail bottles, almost exclusively in Maine. There's maybe like a dozen or so places outside of Maine that I've worked with to sell product to, but a good amount of fish markets and independent shops. And most of them have actually ended up reaching out to me. Really, a handful that I've gone out to and sampled to that I've kind of known would be a really good fit. I actually live in South Thomaston, and so my local fish market is Jess's in Rockland.
Yeah.
And they were an enthusiastic first buyer because a lot of those fish markets, they get it. You know, there are people who are throwing like theory on there. Whoa, you made this out of that? Yeah, sure, I'll sell that. And so, yeah, I'm in harbor fish and brown trading and so forth in Portland as well. There's also a fermentation specific shop in Portland on Washington Ave. It's called umami, which is a Korean word for a clay pot. And they sell all types of really interesting fermented products. They're an awesome store, and they sell my product. And so a lot of people coming in there actually know the word garum or have a relationship with fish sauce already. They often want it.
What's the name of that?
Onggi, Onggi. Yeah, and there's a handful of little markets that have just reached out to me. I'm in Morning Glory in Brunswick, John Edwards Market in Ellsworth is probably the closest place here that I sell my fish sauce in. But I've also had people, you know, as far as Arizona reach out to me because they just discover what I'm doing and say, oh, I'm in. I think the sauce might want to buy it. And people have all types of funky reasons. It's really, you know, I do a lot of events. I was just down in Boston at a fermentation festival, and I try to go to those events because, you know, with a name like garum and a thing like fermented fish guts, you really, I get so much more out of getting to have a face-to-face experience with someone, kind of like I'm having with all you, and get to really explain the story and why you should care about it. I feel like I get a huge amount out of those experiences. But it's really interesting to see the type of people that walk up to me and are excited about it. You know, you have the culinary weirdos that I think I fall into that camp, that are just like, I want to try that new thing. I'm interested in it. What's going on? I like to try new stuff. Then you have who are really into history, who are just like, oh my God, I've read about garum so many times and I know it doesn't exist anymore and I've always wanted to try it, and they're so excited. Like I had somebody walk up to me recently that found me in a store and just saw garum on a bottle and was like, oh my God, I need it. Oh, I need to get it right now. And came up to me and it's like, I think we, you know, really excited about it. And then there's the people who are just in it for the flavor and the sustainability story too. That's a whole other, you know,
that's another whole
rope in. And then there's a lot of restaurants I work with as well. So in addition to the 6-ounce bottles, I do these big 1.5 liter boxes that are like boxed wine, where they have like a little spout at the bottom. That way you can have your own little scoop bottle and you can refill it. And so there's a whole handful of restaurants in Maine and actually quite a more outside of Maine. I've sampled to a lot of different Maine restaurants and most Maine restaurants outside of a small handful. But like I go down to Rhode Island and everyone loves that where I'm from also. But everybody loves it. Like I had a line cook. I was eating like at a kind of chef's counter type situation at a place that uses my fish sauce. And I was talking to one of the cooks and I was like, oh yeah, I make your fish sauce. And he like ripped the glove off his and shit. I think your fish sauce is so cool. And I was like, oh, thank you very much. It's really cool.
Well, we have a Scotch-Irish population.
Sure.
We don't have a Portuguese, Italian
Totally
population.
different. Absolutely. Well, and in addition to that, one of the things that Providence specifically has is Johnson and Wales, which creates this like, you know, incredible force of cooks that are able to work in restaurants. You know, if you could be a great chef, but your restaurant can only have 6 seats in it if you're going to be the one doing all the cooking. And so I think that you get this like huge wave of really ambitious cooks who are into learning and into the story and into all the things that are going on. That I maybe those exist more in Portland and I haven't found them, but I haven't found them yet. Yeah. So, but there's a whole bunch of restaurants that are using.
Have you written Jose Andres?
I haven't written a Jose Andres yet, and part of it is also I've been really small. Yeah. You know, I've actually been really happy to build slowly, and
Right.
focus regionally.
Good.
Because, I think that a lot of the people that are gonna be most invested and interested in a product called Maine Garum are gonna be people right here in Maine. And that's been the case, people get really excited to say, fish sauce in Maine. And I haven't been producing the volume to be able to supply. I actually
Really
absolutely, yeah. I had a wait list for a while on retailers because I had enough people reach out to me that I finally had to be like, listen, I can't supply my current customers. I add you on. Because I had a bunch of times where I was like, I have 12 bottles left. I hope no one places an order in the next couple of days because I can't bottle for another couple of days. Because it's also, it's something that takes time. And there are ways to accelerate fish sauce. And a lot of that is what gets imported here in the United States. There are some really excellent brands that get imported in the United States. But most of it, especially the cheap stuff, when you're in Hannaford, you're going to see something like a Kitchen. There's a lot of brands out there that you see a bottle of fish sauce and it's just a couple of bucks. And the reason why it's just a couple of bucks is because they're taking the fish and they add a really, really strong acid to it, like a hydrochloric acid or something like that. And that's what does the liquefaction of fish. And then they add a really strong base to it to neutralize it. And that produces the salts.
Yeah.
And so they're making a fish sauce in 48 to 72 hours.
Wow.
And so that's a totally different process versus, me working with a specific supplier that I feel, a no hormone, no antibiotic, really well raised fish that's cared for really well. And I know what temperature it was at every point in the process. I'm able to get this incredibly high quality product, and then I naturally ferment it and I let it do its thing and I let it age until it's in the right spot. And so, my stuff's more expensive, but it takes longer to make, but it's also way more delicious.
Do you know the people called Slow Food?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another.
Totally.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this, it's great. It's because this is, sustainable.
Yeah. No, and I think it's producing food in almost any fashion. Maybe oysters and seaweed are the exception. It's gonna have some impact on the environment. It just requires us to do something, And if we're going to raise fish, if we're gonna pull them out of the ocean, we should extract every bit of value and we should appreciate it as much as possible. And that's where I want to be. I think that's what I also hope that a lot of people are inspired to do as well. I hope that people that think what I'm doing is cool start thinking, who has a problem that I could help solve? And whether it's fermentation in food or whether it's a total other methodology that you use to solve a problem, I think that's really
It's a good question. A really good question.
yeah. I hope that people start thinking like that because I think it's part of the value for sure. I told my story. Thinking of questions,
Does the garum have any of the same digestive benefits as lacto-fermented vegetables, for instance?
Yeah, I don't know. It's very, very different. So, when you're lacto-fermenting vegetables, and I can get a little nerdy on it too, if you're into it. There's only, there's 5 people, so why not? Fish sauce is technically not a fermented food. It is produced through autolysis, self-degradation. Like I explained to you before, it's the eel's gut. It's enzymes that are liquefying fish, whereas a fermented food is when a microorganism is eating your cabbage or whatever it is,
Right.
and it's excreting all this sour stuff, which is doing the preserving. So it's different for sure. My assumption is that there's definitely benefits to it because I don't pasteurize my product. It's one of the things that I really like the flavor that you get out of it. And if you want it to have, you can get a lot more roasty flavors out of it. And if you want those, you can cook it. But then if you add it to a salad, it'll still be like so bright and really, really, bright. It's just nice. So, and one of the other things is with this, you get a really huge diversity of compounds. So, I was describing the like acid hydrolyzed fish sauces earlier, where you're just really strong chemicals, and that breaks all your proteins down into very consistent, small size things. So you kind of just get like a lot of one molecule. With this, you get this huge diversity of molecules of all different sizes, and a lot of those then synergistically act together and taste even better. And my general assumption in life, and I think there's a lot of evidence, if it tastes better, it is better. And so there's definitely some things that are good, but it's definitely not the same things that are good about like lactobacillus.
So what do you use it on?
Great question. Pretty much everything. Seriously. And so one of my goals with this, like I said, I really see this as here is an attempt at making an American tradition around an umami product. So let me make something that tastes good to most Americans and has a place in the huge diversity of cuisine that Americans eat. One of the wonderful things about living here is you can eat Mexican food one night, Italian food another night, and Cambodian food this night, and never leave the same city. You don't get to do that in the same way in a lot of other places. And so I wanted to produce something that was versatile, and really specifically is I didn't want it to have those rotten fish flavors that is really, almost every fish sauce that you can buy has them. And especially for people in Maine, it just smells like rotting bait. Like you open up a cap and you're like, oh, bait, cool, yeah, I don't need any of that.
Exactly.
And I totally get that. And so I mean, listen, it's so important to say there's nothing wrong with those flavors. Those flavors go great with sugar and lime juice and tamarind pad thai. They're like fantastic. And but those flavors aren't what you want in your mashed potatoes. This is what you want in your mashed potatoes. Because I did a bunch of work, in my years of recipe development on this, is figuring out how can I get a really delicate oceanic flavor rather than a funky fishy flavor. And by achieving that, like I think I did, and I'll have you guys taste it and you can tell me if I'm right, you can really use it as a salt replacer. So anywhere where you might add salt, you can now add this fish sauce, and not only are you salting and seasoning your food, but you're also bringing that umami that makes everything just a little bit more delicious. And so, like mashed potatoes, fantastic with this. Like you will eat them, and you won't say, "Oh, these are fishy mashed potatoes." You'll just go, "Where the hell did you get these potatoes? They are delicious." Because you won't be like, "Oh, I can tell there's fish sauce in it." You'll just be like, "Oh, is this like, would you get fancy butter? Like, what is going on with this?" Because it just like it makes it taste delicious in the way that pizza and Doritos are, but it's mashed potatoes. And so like, for Thanksgiving one year, it's the only thing I seasoned by turkey. I just poured it all over the turkey. I put it in the fridge. I let it sit there for 24 hours. I pulled it out again. I covered it in fish sauce again. I threw it back in the fridge for another 24 hours. Then I cooked my turkey, and I didn't tell anybody. And everybody agreed. They were like, "Oh, this is really good turkey," which I got turkey from a local farm. It was going to be delicious anyway. But it was like, all of us were like, "This is crazy. I can't believe how good this is." And it's not that you're tasting fish sauce and turkey, that you're tasting, "Oh, wow, this is just turkey," rather than being something that takes center stage or is a part of everything you're tasting. It just elevates what you're doing. So like one of my favorite, there's still a little bit of shishito peppers, Second Frost Farms, same shishito peppers, farms, down the rock. But really any vegetable in a hot pan to just get a little color on them. I like to do no oil even, so it's just like kind of stays dry. A little bit of char, and then I'll put just enough oil. Doesn't matter what, olive oil, but whatever. Just a coat, and then finish it with some fish sauce in a hot pan, and that causes all the fish sauce to caramelize and reduce and just like shellac onto the outside of the vegetables, and they're just like these wonderful. It's like you get this wonderful, delicious salty layer on the outside of it. And one of the really fun things that you get to do with it by having it not so fishy is you get to start putting it in sweets. And so, like, my girlfriend makes chocolate chip cookies with fish sauce in them. One of our favorite ways to sample to people, to kind of give them like, is she'll make Rice Krispie treats and put fish sauce in them. And so like we'll go, here's a Rice Krispie, and they eat it, you know. Like addictive Rice Krispie treat. Like you walk away and you feel in your mouth, you're like, wow, I really.
So basically, you've got a natural whatever they put on Doritos to add to everything.
That's a fantastic way to explain it. Yeah. I've gotten my point across to you.
So
Absolutely.
you need a marketing person? No.
Yeah, but it's useful
Wow.
just in a fantastic number of things. And so like everybody's like, oh, I can make a stir fry with it. I'll put it in my Asian. Yes, you can absolutely do that. It will be delicious if you do those things, but there's so many other use occasions for it that make it really, really fantastic.
So you're gonna sell us some?
I have some if you want to buy some for sure. And I can take cards or cash. I brought my little card reader too. But would you guys like to try some?
Yes.
Yeah.
Could I
It's
ask you,
Yeah, please.
what is the, do you have to put a shelf life on that?
The shelf life is indefinite. The line that I always give to people is, if you don't finish it before you pass away, you can will it to your children. Because it really is, and so it's a defined threshold by the FDA. You know, I'm not inventing anything new, and it's just like honey. It's actually so it's a measurement called water activity. Have you ever even heard that? What happened? And it's the amount of free water that's floating around in a whatever it is. Because any bacteria that needs some water to grow, and it needs to excrete the things it needs to excrete, and it needs to bring in the food, whatever that it needs to bring in. And if there's so much stuff, you know, whether it's salt, sugar, anything that dissolves in something, the bacteria can't get it. And it actually sucks the water out of the bacteria. And so everything's still in here. It's just shriveled up and can't move and can't do anything. And it'll be that way forever until you add water to it. It'll actually come back to life and do the thing. But as long as you don't do that, there's a pretty good full buffer on this thing. But no, it does not, it doesn't go bad. I'll probably, it makes people like aren't comfortable with that concept. Generally, people feel like, oh, it must go bad at some point. But no, it really doesn't. Like, bury it 500 years later, pick it back up, put it on your food, you're fine. It's totally going to be good. But I think one day there's going to be like within 2 years of open, 4 years of open, because like it will certainly change. Because like I said,
It's open.
Well, even when it's not open. Because it's not pasteurized, so which means that all those enzymes are still in there. They're still active. They're still causing change. As far as I have, since I've been making fish sauce, I have yet to have a fish sauce get worse. It just seems to develop and mellow and deepen in really interesting ways. It's really delicious, bright and fresh. Also really delicious when it's aged a little bit. They're just a little different, but didn't really ever go that.
So you're not really regulated. Right?
No, I'm absolutely regulated. Yeah, no, I'm registered with with the state of Maine. I am under the threshold for FDA registration, but the facility that I'm in, American Cannabis Facility, is registered with the FDA. We've had an inspection, and I have full food safety plans and everything to back all this stuff up. So no, I'm totally regulated. Yeah, and I have a whole family of food safety certifications that I've gotten. So yeah, I haven't been inspected yet, but I'm looking. I got really good documentation.
I hope you brought some mashed potatoes.
I did. I brought something a little bit more fun, but I'll wait to surprise you with it. This is an upcycled fish sauce, so I ideally don't really like to produce any waste to taste it. Like, why do we need a single use item? So the way that I like to have people taste it is put out your hand like this, your thumb on the outside of your knuckles, makes this nice little flat spot on your hand right there.
Right.
And so what I'll do is I'll come around, I'll just put a little drop of fish sauce just like that. Trust me, it's pungent enough that you'll know what's going on. You taste it. And so this guy right here is what I've been talking to you about. That's the eel fish sauce. Yeah, that's perfect. Great form.
Wow.
That's a good sound right there.
I'll take a case.
I got a case. You might have to fight everybody else for it. Oh, do you
Wow.
wanna do your other hand, or do you,
Oh,
are you
yeah,
able
just
to
do it.
bring that one up to your
Right.
face? Maybe you will drop
Tastes
a
like
fish
salt.
sauce on your hand, you can't taste.
Tastes like
Very
salt to me.
It's very salty,
It's very salty, yeah, absolutely.
but I use a lot of salt.
Well, that's not good for your heart. This is better for your heart.
No, the doctor told me to use more salt. My blood pressure's
Oh.
low.
Oh,
Okay,
oh, good news.
Good news, exactly.
Yeah, and if anybody here does try to reduce salt, one of the really fun things that, because a lot of people will be like, oh, it's salty, I can't have it, and I'm like, well, it's not a soda, you don't drink it. You put the same amount of salt into your food that you might with salt. It's just, but one of the fun things about umami substances, and so this applies to fish sauce, but it applies to miso and soy sauce and all those things, is that umami, and I said it triggers a lot of the same things of salt that you experience. And so when you can take a say mashed potatoes, and I'm gonna add 5 grams of salt to this mashed potatoes, and then I'm gonna add enough fish sauce to add on 4 grams of salt to this mashed potatoes. But it's gonna have all the additional umami. It actually tricks your brain. You will think they're equally as salty. So it's a trick for actually being able to season your food a little bit less by adding a bunch of umami. So that was the eel, and I actually have a couple other fish sauces that
Okay.
are like prototypes if you'd like to try. And so the first one I've already mentioned is the green crab.
crab.
And so I have a little sample of it, and so this one is funkier. This
Okay,
is more, and it's a little bit saltier as well, but it's only going to be a cup. So, and you might really love
I
it. Huh?
can't wait to see the green crabs go.
Yep.
yeah, we want to see green
And,
crabs go. Green
so-
crabs go.
This one
Ooh,
is
that
kind of
funky.
more of a fish sauce for people who like fish sauce.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Tastes like fish.
That's very funky.
Don't
Tastes
worry,
like
I'll have a
lobster.
salad for you.
It tastes like the
Big time, right?
tastes like the water you suck out of a lobster leg.
Sure, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, big time. But if you're making like a crab pasta dish, oh my god, you can make it so crabby. If we're like seasoning like a lobster roll or something
Yeah.
with like a couple of drops of that, you're like, oh, the lobster is fun. And the last one I have for you is tilapia. And so this actually comes from Springworks Farm, which is in Lisbon. You might have seen their lettuce in Hannaford. They sell a bunch of like lettuce and clamshells, but it's grown in Maine. And it's a whole system that has both the fish and the lettuce in it. And the fish are what fertilize the water for the lettuce, and it's a really low impact way to grow those things. But no one really wants the tilapia. And the tilapia grow in this water that's really good for fertilizing plants, but not very good for delicious tilapia. But power fermentation makes it pretty tasty.
Cool.
Mm. Wow, delicious.
I like that one.
You like that one?
Yep.
Sweeter.
Saltier than the first.
It is salty.
Salty at the
It
first
has
one,
the
but
tiniest
it's-
bit of funkiness to it, which I
Mhm.
like.
it has flavor.
Yeah. And one of the things as I develop fish sauces, I have to add, I add an amount of salt that I know is gonna be safe, that I'm not gonna kill myself. And then I send it out for measurement. And I say, okay, I put a little bit more salt than I needed to, and then I keep walking it back and back and back. Because my goal is to have as little salt as possible in it. So that way you can add it to food, get a lot of umami without over seasoning it. And it also, I think it just like builds a really delicious combination.
We're gonna fix the beans to it. Just,
Yeah,
how would we cook them first, or we're gonna do with Jackie, just, steam them? Just steam them.
yeah, sure. What kind of beans? Like green beans?
Yellow bean.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, I would do, if you were steaming yellow beans, I would take them, would you normally put anything on them, or you just like?
Salt and butter ready.
Okay, perfect. So like, once they're steamed and still hot, and you put some butter on them, a couple dashes of fish sauce. And fish sauce and butter work beautifully together, then it makes an incredible sauce. And I would just like toss them a little bit in a bowl so they get nice and coated in the butter and the fish sauce. It'll be fantastic. But you can add fish sauce in a whole bunch of different spots, and it'll kind of work in all of them. So like one of the tricks that I've recently figured out is like, when you you caramelize like a piece of meat in a pan, and then you throw a bunch of other things in the pan, and you get all the wonderful flavors from the meat, all the caramelizedness. You can do like an instant version of that with fish sauce, where you have a hot pan, throw a little fish sauce in, it'll caramelize for a second, and then throw green beans, the yellow beans, whatever in, and they'll cook in all that caramelized food.
I'm just gonna tell you that we have to be out by 8:20, so
Okay.
Oh, right.
if you wanna stop at 8:15, we can put
Sure
the chairs
thing.
up. So let us taste whatever you got.
Great. So, like I said, my favorite way to get people, or one of the fun things you can do with it is have
Thank you.
sweets.
I was about to.
Okay,
And my
whipped
favorite
cream.
way to sample it people is with whipped cream. Would you guys like to try?
Whipped cream.
Whipped cream. Yep.
I'll put my
So I
hand,
think I
so we should
developed
put our
trust.
hand out like this, right?
Well, no, we'll do same spot. We'll do same spot. So, and I'll show you on me. I'll put a little dollop of whipped cream, and it's the eel one that
Yeah.
we're gonna try because that's the one that's not
Or
so.
the-
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the first one. Yep. And so I'll just come by, put a couple of drops of fish sauce on top of your whipped cream. And you tell me what you think.
Very, this is very exciting.
I'm glad. The people are doing that on Zoom.
They really are. They really are. But this is what I'll do whenever I go to a little fermentation fair. This is my favorite way because people are always like,
Wow.
Thank
"Oh
you.
my God, are you crazy? You're putting fish sauce on whipped cream? What are you thinking?"
It's like
Oh,
caramelized.
it's delicious on ice cream.
Yes, it's delicious.
It's a butterscotch too.
Wow.
You make a
delicious.
little nice type of sauce and then put a little fish sauce in. Delicious.
Whoa.
do you
That's
think?
incredible.
I think that's great. And how much is a bottle?
Bottles are 24,
Okay.
and